Unplugged, here we go. Rudy and the crew, exclusive interview. Welcome to the show, let's have some fun. Sweep Unplugged starts now.
Hey guys, welcome back to Sweep Unplugged. It's been a while since we've done a Sweep Unplugged. We needed to give everybody a break because we were releasing so many episodes, and we were also getting ready for the network launch, because if you haven't noticed, and if you're just listening to Sweep Unplugged and you don't listen to all the other shows that we offer, the announcement was made. I Am Refocused Radio, Sweep the League Network, already partners for years and years and years, just finalized the merger. So you're getting 24/7 of Sweep the League TV, Sweep Unplugged, I Am Refocused Radio. I mean, every show that you can imagine a part of both networks is now combined into one. So you can get us 24/7 all the time, every time. Just go to YouTube, search Sweep the League TV, search I'm Refocused Radio, hit subscribe on both of them. That way you can be in the driver's seat just watching everything that we release content-wise, including today's episode of Sweep Unplugged, where we're going to be joined by Dr. Robert J. Wolf. Now, Dr. Robert Wolf, you may think, well, we're going to talk medical again because we had some medical podcasts and we were trying to get everybody healthy for 2025, start of the year with exercise and mental health. No, a little bit different. Dr. Wolf is actually a really, really great author. He's released a book. The book is called Not a Real Enemy, the true story of a Hungarian Jewish man's fight for freedom. 4-time award winner, Nautilus Book Award, a National Indie Excellence Award, a Living Now Book Award, and a Reader's Favorite Book Award of 2023. So let's bring him on to the show here. It is Robert J. Wolf, Dr. Robert J. Wolf. Welcome, Dr. Wolf, to Sweep Unplugged. Sir, how are you?
I'm well, Rudy. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
I'm doing good. It's kind of crappy because we're talking on tax day, and I'm thinking, well, the one thing on my mind is I already owe the government my arm and my left leg. How much more can the government take from me? But that's a whole nother Sweep Unplugged for us here on tax day.
Well, you read my book, you'll appreciate our government versus all these other dictatorships and oligarchies that they talk about here. You guys, people that call this place an oligarchy, have no idea what they're talking about. So at least you can pay taxes. But yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a Ponzi scheme. You put in all this money over the years and you get back a fraction of it. And, we say tax returns. Oh, I've got money coming back. And that's money you paid. It's a free loan to the government, as we know. So, but look, if they get the services, I'm good with it. Let's get the national debt down and go from there. Let's see what happens. But, and one other thing, I want to thank Shemaiah too. I did his radio program with him a few weeks ago, and it was great. He's a really cool guy, and he also helped arrange this. So a shout out to him too, because super nice. And if I remember correctly, Ohio connection too. So and being from Michigan, that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, because he's got the Michigan connection. I actually lived in Ohio a couple of years. My wife and I lived in Middletown, which is in between Dayton and Cincinnati. So we loved it up there. It was great. And Not a Real Enemy, the true story. Let me get the whole thing. A true story of a Hungarian Jewish man's fight for freedom. It's available, as you can see down there in the ticker right there. It's available on Amazon or at your local Barnes and Noble. You want to go out and get it right away. So we want to talk a little bit about sports a little bit, because we had a small connection. You being from Detroit, me having a few Detroit natives on the Sweep the League as host here. We're going to get into that just a little bit. Got to do the little foreshadowing there for a little bit here. But with the book itself, Not a Real Enemy, the broad question, the under the umbrella in question here that I wanted to ask you was the inspiration for the book itself. I went a little bit about your backstory, went a bit about your back history, but for everybody there that's listening to Sweep Unplugged, what was the inspiration for the book, Not a Real Enemy?
Great question. And it's always similar answer, but I try to switch it up a little bit. So with that answer, I've got to include the history of the book, if you don't mind.
Sure.
For a couple of minutes. So my mom and dad, well, the book is an adventure. It was about my dad. He was a 4-time escape artist. It's his biography. I turned his autobiography into a biography. And it's trials and tribulations of my dad's family. His parents unfortunately, they weren't as fortunate as my dad. And it's a history book. It covers Hungary from the end of World War I to the end of Hungarian Revolution in 1956, which not a lot of people know about, including myself. I didn't know a lot about the history until I went through my dad's story. So we're covering, the 20s, the 30s, 40s, and well into the 50s before my parents left for the United States, for Austria, and ultimately the United States. And that was my dad's fourth escape. They wrote the story in the 70s. They did an autobiography. They wrote the stories as though they'd happened the previous day, the way the table was set, the smells, the sounds, the crisp air, the fear, all of it. You put yourself right into my dad's place as the book goes along, and it's unbelievable how he did that. And then they turned it from paper and pencil to a typewriter to a computer, printed up the manuscript. I probably read the manuscript about 30 years ago, didn't think much of it. I'm a doctor like my dad was, a radiologist. So at age 30, I've got family, I've got a career, and so I didn't really have much time to think about it. I do remember his first escape, how harrowing it was, but the rest of it I didn't. Amazing. My parents were sharp, and like I said, they wrote the stories as though that happened the previous day. Flash forward to 1997, my dad passes away, unfortunately. 2016, my mom passes away, unfortunately, and a historian friend of ours hands me the disc. So the story's now on a disc, and she says, "You've got to read this." Didn't think much of it at the time. Took a year to take care of my mom's affairs. Took a year to retire. I had been part-time, and I'm actually now permanently retired from radiology. We can talk about medicine on another interview if you want. I'd be happy to. Radiology and healthcare.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so I retired for a year. Now 2017. Never burn your bridges. 2018, a former partner of mine said, "Look, we're short radiologists. We could use some help. Can you work a couple days a week?" So I went back to ultrasound and X-ray Wednesdays and Thursdays part-time. That's the job I just retired from, and I'm done after 35 years. 44 all in with college and med school, etc. But what it did do is bring me back to the book. And so, as a radiologist, our left screen is the patient queue. The right screen are the images. And between cases, the left screen was my dad's autobiography, and the right screen was me turning it into a biography. So, and I tried to keep the fidelity as close as possible. I had to switch around the words. We had to research the history. But the way my dad wrote it, the stories were so amazing. Not only the four escapes, but also 20 miracles in this book. It's how he got into med school, how he found out about the fate of his parents, arguing with arm-bursting soldiers, cloak and dagger stories. And I told myself, look, I can't leave this story on a computer or on a disc. I need to share this. So now we're talking 2019 when I'm finished with the biography, query. And the motivation was, if you read the book, you say, well, how can you not want to recant this story? It's just so amazing. And so we queried agents and publishers with little success, and we were about to self-publish. But then I found Janice Harper, my co-author, through another author, Lisa Tenner from Rhode Island, who's a good friend of mine and a great advisor and book coach. And so has Janice, my co-author. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't be here. Right? All those awards. And I got to thank the team, too. The gentleman, Mark, who's been with me on the whole journey, set up my website, taught me about socials. He's been with me, and we're still in touch about that and other things, too. So Janice took it on for another year, and she redid the book and turned it from a boring biography where Dad was born here, A to B to C, to a real book, to a real novel, and parallel stories, converging stories, stories in and out of order, letters to and from home, conversations, and really made the book into something special. She helped me with my lecture, my book presentation, which is well received. I've done 36 of them, a big one coming up next month at University of South Carolina, and she helped me vet out the agents and publishers that we wanted, and literally bottom of the ninth, shoestring catch. This is always my analogy. We've got Amsterdam publishers, and this is all they do is Holocaust and related. And she loved the book. Elizabeth, she's in Amsterdam, where anti-Semitism is rampant, as is many parts of the world, of course. And we were lucky. She took us on. So then the book got released, and my motivation now is just fighting anti-Semitism. This is all I do now that I'm retired from radiology. I enjoy life. I mean, sports and music and fitness and golf and nutrition and history, all kind of travel. Kind of like my parents. They were very sharp, very diversified. Although they like classical music, I like rock, jazz, fusion. Doesn't matter. They introduced me to culture and introduced me to history and the history of the Holocaust. And another question people ask is, did you really talk about it much first half of your life? And my mom and dad did, but me, not so much. Later in life, even more so. And if you knew me 6 years ago, you'd say this guy would never, I was never a writer, except when I had to help out as part of my training with medical journals and articles, kind of helped your resume, CV as we call it. But you'd say, boy, this guy, because I had Holocaust burnout by the time my mom had passed away, because she talked about it just about every day. And not just the history of Hungary and the history of, and everything, not just the Holocaust, but the perils of communism. And I got a little burnout from it. So, but when she passed and I looked at the stories, here we go. And so I'm completely transformed. The book called me out like Superman's kryptonite. It's kind of my corny expression, but when I went back to work, it summoned me, and here we are.
Yeah, and it's funny you brought up the Superman, the kryptonite comparison, because I remember and I was doing some of the old podcasts that you were doing, and you had mentioned that a few times, and it's almost like those movies where you're seeing, a book laying there or something, and you just hear like this voice, like, pick me up, read me, do this, do that, do that. Kind of similar to what you were talking about.
I couldn't describe it better. Yeah, absolutely. It's just sitting there on my desk, and I'm like, oh, look, I got to look at this, and then I was. Well, there were exceptions. So yeah, I had to walk away. When I read what my grandparents, they perished at Auschwitz while my dad was at forced labor camp. And it was a miracle that my dad found out exactly what happened to them through an eyewitness months after the war. So that's a miracle anyway. But yeah, so just amazing everything that happened with. And by the way, my dad became an OBGYN and delivered 10,000 babies in the Detroit area. And that's the punchline. That's what we call redemption. It doesn't bring back the 6 million. It doesn't bring back the 50 million that died in World War II, plus countless that died under communism, including the Hungarian Revolution. But it does bring life back to the world. And jovial and jolly, no signs of PTSD. You would never know everything he had gone through. My mom the same way. My dad was less of an educator, but sometimes he was on call and delivering 2 babies a night, but loving every minute of it. But just didn't have quite the time to share more. But that was I'm lucky to be here. My dad was lucky to make it here. Split second timing, the hand of God. Like I said, 20 miracles, 4 escapes, and it was just. And I never get tired of talking about it, even though I'm talking about the same thing every day. There's a different variation. Last week it was movies, Schindler's List, and this week we were tied into sports, and next week something else, and it's just. And the great thing about this journey is meeting great people like you, people that care. People that give a bleep, it's important. And that's part of the journey. You get bad things too. You get ghosted, you get people talking smack about anti-Semitism.
Right.
I get not a lot, fortunately, because they're finally vetting that out too. But it is what it is. I think what I'm doing is important, and people that are with me on this, they agree, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that kind of support.
Yeah, anytime and every time that we can support, we definitely will. Talking to Dr. Robert J. Wolf, author, 4-time award-winning author, not a real enemy, the true story of a Hungarian Jewish man's fight for freedom. Now, we got the inspiration for the book, and along the terms of the book itself, this was something I thought as well. Like, okay, obviously we've got past in world history, American history. There's a lot of different conflicts. There's a lot of different, even internal civil wars, not so much the Civil War, but civil wars, that we've seen even in today's society. The one thing that I want to ask you on this is that you came out and you wrote it, and you said it right there. You had a little bit of burnout when it came to talking about Holocaust, because your mom was talking about it, and it made me think, well, here's the thing. You talk about suppressed memories. You talk about how many people do you feel went through this but just could not talk about it? Are there very many people as yourself, Dr. Wolf, that are willing to talk about it? Then there are people that are actually, you know what, I don't want to relive that. I don't want to talk about it. How difficult is it to discuss it? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that just don't want to go through that again. I've got memories. My dad passed away, back in 2018. And it is so difficult for me to talk about it to people because I just don't want to relive that moment for me. And I'm assuming that there's a lot of other people like that when it comes to not just what the Holocaust was, but for other conflicts that we've ever experienced and they've experienced in their lifetime.
I'm sorry for your loss. You bring up a great point that comes up not in every interview or podcast, but it does come up. Yeah, we don't talk about the Civil War, do we? Don't talk about the American Revolution.
Mhm.
We barely talk about Korea, Vietnam. Vietnam was the classic war where we had a lot of
Yeah.
PTSD, they say. I met some of the veterans when I rotated through medical school at the VA and elsewhere, and I felt that it was palpable. A lot of people wrote books about it. A lot of the second and third generations are still doing it, and I think that's important. And I understand how people have PTSD or wanted to suppress it. My parents' case, for example, they never taught me Hungarian. They loved Mother Hungary, but they hated Nazi Hungary and Communist Hungary, so they left.
Yeah.
Hence, not a real enemy. That's another explanation. But they and the other. So, Hungarian Revolution itself, not a lot of people even know about. So I'm just sort of enlightening that. But and the other thing about that is there are a lot of people who didn't survive. And a lot of people that, what about the people that died the day before they were rescued from Auschwitz, or the men that died on death marches in Europe, including Hungary, that not a lot of people know about? We all know about Okinawa. So American history needs to be retaught, and so does history throughout the world, because we had a huge civil war in Israel, in Gaza, and that's going to take a long time for reparations, not only construction, but also emotional, spiritual, intellectual. And look what that's done. I mean, my slippery slope of fighting hate has gone from this to this, you know. So
Yeah.
I've had talks canceled because of worries about security. Truthfully, there's apathy about anti-Semitism. There's apathy about hate because, for one thing, we don't have, like the Nazis did, we don't have armored cars and jeeps and those ugly flags, Hamas, let's say, in the streets of Miami or San Antonio or New York. If we had that, it'd be a different conversation. So thank God for, so far that's not happened. I'm just doing it. I feel like it's my charge. It's my mission now. And I think it's just too important to let go, especially now. But yeah, a lot of people that didn't survive. And I mean, not only the ones that might have passed a week or two before they would have been rescued, but the people that died of malnutrition and other diseases, not just the ones that were burned. And the forced laborers, only 5% of forced laborers survived in Hungary, and most of them. And my dad was on the run and in hiding, and when the war ended, so he wasn't one of them. But only 5% survived, and most of them were treated like prisoners of war, even though they were unarmed through World War II and shot at by Hungarian planes and on and on and on. So survivors, yeah, and I understand why people don't want to share it. Some people didn't document the history like my mom and dad did very meticulously. So there's all kinds of reasons. I can't get into everybody's head, but I can understand why. I always ask myself, and I share this with the audience. I don't know how I would have gotten through everything my dad did. I don't know how most Americans would. Maybe people in the military, police, EMTs, frontliners, but it would be hard for me to get through all that. And my parents never went to the bottle. They never did drugs. They just moved on with their life, focused on their work and education. So, and the other thing is, what happened to my dad could happen to any one of us. It could be a bad neighbor, a bad business deal, local government, federal government, foreign government, natural disaster, bad timing, victim of a crime. Anything what might happen to my dad could happen to any of us. And food, shelter, clothing. We need more than food, shelter, clothing in this country. Religion, family, work, occasional vacation. But back then, for my mom and dad, and so many others, food, shelter, clothing was everything. So big difference. A lot of lessons.
Yeah, and you brought up the Vietnam War. My dad, being a Vietnam veteran, was very proud to be a Vietnam veteran. He was drafted, so for the kids out there that don't really know about the draft, it wasn't, hey, you're the number one pick type stuff. No, it was, you were drafted, you were sent, you were forced to go. That being my dad, I remember as a kid talking to him like, Dad, what happened in Vietnam? He would never tell me. He had pictures, he had a photo album from Vietnam. I saw bodies in there that, obviously that were dead, in those photo albums, but he hid those. And, he never talked about it. He never wanted to talk about it. He only talked about the good things that happened over there. When he got back from war, PTSD, the simplest boom, the simplest, car racing down the street would set him off to the point where he'd get under his bed and he'd cover his ears. And he was just, the traumatic times that people live through. To me, if I could ever have had my dad open up, maybe I could have, shared his story and, shared other people's stories. But, that's as we talked about, there's just some parts where you just put it in the back of your mind and you leave it there and it never comes out. So, Dr. Robert Wolf, Not a Real Enemy, the true story of a Hungarian Jewish man's fight for freedom. It's available on Amazon and local Barnes and Noble. Go get it today. You can definitely read the book. It's a great inspirational story. Like you said, an escape artist escaped 4 times is what you were talking about in the book. And again, it's something that you want to read, because what I tell my daughter is history's history. We can't go back and change it. So you know what? You may as well go back and learn about it, because it's always going to be a part of our lives. Dr. J. Robert J. Wolf here talking about his book. And the thing that I want to do here is let's transition over for a little bit. We're coming towards the end of the show here. You being from Detroit, and people see on Sweet Billy, they see this Gervin guy, Derek Gervin, who is from Detroit, and obviously brother of Iceman. Your Detroit Pistons are in the playoffs, and it's been a while. It's been a while, and I remember I'm on record here, Robert. I'm on record. I told Derek, look, Detroit's got a really good team this year. He says, I don't know, man. One of the worst teams in the league last year. I said, look, they got a really good team this year. I wouldn't be surprised if they make the play-in. Well, hell, they're in the playoffs. As a Piston fan, how are you feeling? Because not only that, Detroit sports is starting to make its way back up. The Lions getting back up there. No, haven't seen the success since maybe the Stafford and Johnson days, all the way back to the Barry Sanders and Rodney Peete days. I mean, now Detroit Lions are coming up. Pistons. We need the Tigers to start, ramping up a little bit more here. But sports in Detroit, Robert, how are you feeling about it?
I love it. Considering we can go back to my childhood where my dad brought my friends and myself to Cobo Hall to watch the Pistons. Now we're talking in the 70s. We were just kids, 12, 13 years old, even in high school. Took us to Tigers games at Tiger Stadium when you want to go back. There's been a real dearth of champions in Detroit the last 10 years or so. The Red Wings had the great run, 24 straight years in the playoffs, so that was a no-brainer. Went to plenty of games, including 2 Stanley Cup Finals games, not when they won it. Pistons in 89-90, remember when they won. I went to University of Michigan Medical School, and I played pickup games as a senior with the guys that won it the next year when I was an intern. Glenn Rice, Gary Grant, Mark Hughes. That was like probably the best athletic experience of my lifetime, just to be able to get in a game and hang. So they won it, and then they won it, of course, in 2004, and I was at that game when they beat Kobe and Shaq 100-84. So that was very, very memorable. And I've been to a couple World Series games, but the Tigers didn't win. 84, I was a freshman in med school, so that was the last time they won. Hard to believe so long. Last year was an amazing season for the Tigers, and they're off to a good start. They played the Dodgers to start, of course, so tough start. The champions. The Dodgers are probably the odds-on favorite to win it. Yeah. I love George Gervin growing up as a kid, and David Thompson, and of course Dr. J. Of course, I like the Pistons too. Isaiah, Joe Dumars, Vinnie Johnson, all those guys. But the new Pistons, I don't know as well. But yeah, miraculous. I think they won 14 games last year, and they were already at 42, so they tripled their wins. And I don't know if I got that right, but I thought I heard that was an NBA record. But I'm rooting for them. I think they're going to be like a 6th seed, maybe. Maybe they'll win to a first round. ESPN says nobody wants to play them, and I can see that. Nobody wants to play Golden State either. I remember when Golden State beat the Pistons in 1976. Bob Lanier, Clifford Ray, Rick Barry. So another good memory. But for a city that's recently been bankrupt, to have these 4 sports teams all come alive. Now, suburban Detroit is sprawling. It's doing very, very well. Yeah. We'll see what the new economy does, too, for Detroit. I think that they want to bring back a lot of manufacturing. That can make Michigan a big boom, and then a lot more money in the city, in the area. They're never going to be the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Patriots or the Cowboys as far as the total, the value of the teams. But it doesn't matter. You look at the Oakland A's, that story, and others. So, yeah, it's wonderful to see. We had a parlay, too. I do a little bit of betting, not a lot, to the Wings, the Pistons, and the Tigers to make the playoffs. And Tigers have a good shot. They're like 11-6 or something now. I haven't checked last night. But the linchpin, unfortunately, was the Red Wings. They didn't make it this year, and they were close. So, but it makes it more exciting. I'm here in Florida now, too. So the teams down here are good. Florida Panthers won. Tampa Bay Lightning recently won. Miami Dolphins up and coming. Miami Heat, I think they're going to be on their downslope for a while until they they replenish. Losing Jimmy Buckets, and like you said earlier, pre-program, you said about Jimmy Buckets is going to be done soon, and maybe, but great playoff guy, and with Steph Curry and that team, they might have a chance to go deep in the playoffs too. So, but exciting times for Detroit fans.
Oh yeah, Detroit sports fans are going to be pampered for a while there, and man, if the Lions can just stay away from injuries, then they can finally raise that Lombardi Trophy.
A couple of years ago, when they say they were snake bitten, I remember the expression specifically saying the Lions were snake bitten. And I remember the guy, I forget his name, he's on the 5 o'clock show on CNBC, and he said, well, I want to know why, and it had nothing to do with the conversations. I want to know why the Detroit Lions are still in the NFL. That was the bottom. It was unbelievable. It was 2.5 years of improvement and winning games. Maybe the winningest team in football. I don't know the exact, other than maybe Kansas City. That would have been a great Super Bowl, Detroit and Kansas City. Or I hope Detroit and the Browns, you're Ohio, you're Cleveland Browns, although you might be a Bengals fan. They've never won it either, right? They've made it a couple of times, but I don't remember. They played in Detroit. They played in Pontiac Silverdome, which is now decrepit, but they lost to San Francisco. But I think there were at least one other. Cleveland never made it. Detroit never made it. Jacksonville, if I'm not mistaken, but Detroit and Cleveland are more of an original six type, like in hockey rather than Jacksonville. But anyway, it's exciting. Lions, I'm betting them to make it. Not a lot, I'm not a big gambler, but I like putting makes it a little more fun to watch. And I like to bet on teams I care about. So they may or may not make it, but you're right. Injuries big, and they lost their 2 coaches, the offense and defensive coordinator, which that could be a big deal. I hate to see that because wow, the success. The play calling and the success of the defense. I mean, they were right there. It's just hard to believe. But yeah, that's my favorite team in all sports. And my bucket list is 2 things: a hole-in-one in golf and a Detroit Lions Super Bowl victory. A hole-in-one in golf is about 10 million to 1 all comers. I got a better shot at that than the Lions Super Bowl. It's my old joke. And I've come close a couple times, but a couple of eagles, but never a hole-in-one. How exciting would that be? But I would take not getting that under a Lions Super Bowl victory, or any day of the year, no doubt.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I'm a diehard Atlanta Falcon fan. I have been forever. It goes back to my dad's roots with Tommy Nobis being Mr. Falcon. He played, he plays high school football at Jefferson and San Antonio. So my dad was a really big fan of his. I became a Falcon fan when I was a kid, and I pretty much have summed up, I'm never going to see a Falcon Super Bowl win. They've been twice. They had the Patriots all the way up until, the end there, 28-3. You'd be surprised how many 28-3 comments, especially on March 28th, that I get across all social media, because fans don't forget about the Falcons' demise in that Super Bowl. And
I'll never forget that. And the Patriots got it handed to them by the Philadelphia Eagles. I forget where it was before or after, but look, the Patriots were like the Red Wings for 20 years. They were the dynasty. So they had Tom Terrific, they had the best coach in the league, and they were surrounded by great players both sides of the ball. So no doubt about it. I wouldn't mind seeing Atlanta win it. I think the other loss was to Pittsburgh, if I'm not mistaken, and that was in Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. Now I'd have to review that, but maybe not. But Steelers have another great tradition. Patriots, Steelers, San Francisco, of course. A few, even the Giants, arguably. Washington Redskins, or what are they now? The Washington
Commanders. The Commanders now.
Who beat Detroit, who punched them out of the playoffs. And I hate that division. Detroit usually plays the Giants tough and Cowboys tough, but they always, for whatever reason, they struggle against Philadelphia and Washington. But Atlanta, Detroit in the NFC Conference Final, Detroit and Cleveland in the Super Bowl, I'd be happy. I'd try to go to that if I could.
That would be an
Detroit
amazing.
Were in the final. Yeah, I'd be amazing. I mean, any of them. A team that's never been, new blood. Detroit Buffalo would have been good, but Buffalo's been, but of course they've never won either. The Toronto Maple Leafs of the NFL.
Yeah, it'll be definitely would be fun to see a lot of that happen. Dr. Robert J. Wolf, again, you want to go get his book, Not a Real Enemy, The True Story of a Hungarian Jewish Man's Fight for Freedom. Before we go, we normally do this. We're doing this lately. A lot of people love it. The Sweep Unplugged top 5, and let's cue the music here a little bit here. So I'm a little birdie told me that you're somewhat of a foodie. You're into the foodie type of stuff. You like to cook and stuff. So I know we thought maybe music, but I want to get into a little bit here because personally I was in Louisiana this weekend and I never tried gumbo until I went to Louisiana. And I'm going to say scale 1 to 10, 10 being good. The one I had was probably, in my opinion, like a 5 or 6. So it's kind of weird. You're in Louisiana, you should get the best there. But foodie wise, top 5 food dishes that Dr. Wolf enjoys or likes to cook. So give me 5 of those dishes there.
All right, I'm going to start off. You'll never expect this. I make a mean gazpacho. I love gazpacho. It's healthy. It's got like 30 ingredients. You got to plan it. A lot of work. You usually get the music in the background when I make it. So I love gazpacho. I love salads. I make salads. I love eggs. I do a lot of omelets, and they're loaded. I add a lot of stuff to my omelets. I like sea bass. I love fish anyway. It's very healthy for you. Sea bass, by far my favorite. And then I like all the seafoods in general. I crab, that I can't make, but and I like it cocktail style with the cocktail sauce or the spicy mustard crab, lobster. You can get great. It's hard to find different types of crab down here. It's not necessarily indigenous to Florida, but it does get imported to the nicer restaurants. So what else? I like soups. It's a good comfort food. Depends on the type. Cream of mushroom or lentil soup. Hot and sour Chinese soups. I love Chinese food in general too. So a little salty, not always good for you. But I try to do kung pao chickens versus General Gao's chicken because of all the bread and calories. But General Gao's is so addicting, and it's another comfort food. There's more than 5. Everybody likes tomato soup with a grilled cheese sandwich, maybe with a slice of ham and a couple slices of tomato. And you can even put a little bit of mustard, some spicy mustard in there. So I like to experiment around. That's the fun of it. And if you mess up, you start again. If you have a good grocery store around, you get all the stuff and do it. And I like to dine out a lot too. So a lot of good things out there that can be healthy.
Yeah, it's crazy. We're talking food, and I've done this already 3 or 4 times in past Sweep Unplugs. I've talked about food knowing I'm on an empty stomach. So now when I get off, I'm gonna have to run and get something for breakfast there. But nonetheless, go ahead.
I like good coffee too, and a good Cosmo, a good cocktail, but it's got to be made right, nice and frothy. I don't drink a whole variety of things, but when I don't go out, and people know me. That's respect too. I don't even have to ask for the cocktail I want, and then they even know what food I want. Then that's really cool. He said the usual. I'm like, yeah, how's it going? That's respect, and with a big smile on their face. So I agree with you too. And I'm due for my breakfast. Sometimes breakfast is 2 in the afternoon. I'm working so hard on this book, 2, 3 in the afternoon, and that's really bad for you. I don't recommend that. But you should eat breakfast first thing or soon after. Hit the gym or wet walk, tennis, pickleball, whatever, and then 3 squares is good. Don't. But I know there's all these crazy diets, and now people are taking shots and everything. I'm more of a diet and exercise guy, and live and let live. But don't smoke is another thing for sure. That's a no-no. It's toxic.
Yeah, I don't smoke. I mean, I do occasionally drink. Sometimes I remember my doctor because quick backstory. I was about very close to 500 pounds, so I've lost. 200, and I'm at 230, 244 right now. So
that's amazing. That's great.
Yeah,
congratulations, muzzle toe. That's great.
And I didn't do shots. I just walked. I exercised. I ate right. So I've lost a lot of weight. I've gained since I've moved to my house out in the Seguin area. I've gained about 30 pounds because I don't have a regimen, but I'm okay with it. I can actually get back to where I was. But the thing with that is you're right. It's just about walking. It's just about being active. And that's what I really want to do. Be active, get in shape for my daughter because she's growing up. She's starting to play sports, and
awesome.
I got to be able to do that. So
absolutely, the sedentary lifestyle. That's the problem with all our technology, including podcasts and television and writing books or whatever you're doing. It's part of it. So you got to make time for yourself. No doubt about it. It's very important.
Always. And
kudos.
Always. And what's important is that they got to go get your book. It's available at Amazon. It's available at local Barnes and Nobles. It's not a real enemy. The true story of a Hungarian Jewish man's fight for freedom. Go get it today. You definitely are not going to regret getting the book here. We're hoping to have Dr. Wolf back with us here pretty soon because, again, there's more to talk about. There's music to talk about. We can talk more about sports. We can get into other aspects of the book as well. But as I was saying earlier, man, time flies when you're having fun on the podcast. So Dr. Wolf, can you let everybody know where they can get a hold of you? That way, if they have any questions regarding the books or they want to maybe talk to you about the book, get some insight, where can they get a hold of you?
Well, I give people my phone number if I didn't think, but I'm Robert at robertjwolfmd.com. That's my email address. My website is robertjwolfmd.com. Besides what you said for the book, you can get it at Walmart online, Tufts University, one of my alma maters, 4 Holocaust museums now where I've done programs or they've sponsored, including the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in D.C. So you can buy the book there as well. And you can reach me. By the way, 10% of my author proceeds are going there. So that not only I'm educating personally, but I'm contributing to the museum that educates, which is, and so if you're buying the book, you're helping out with Holocaust education. That's an ongoing thing. I'm across the board on socials. If you look me up, Robert J. Wolf, MD, or Not a Real Enemy by Robert J. Wolf, you'll find me on Meta, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and Blue Sky. And that's about it. I mean, I have a YouTube channel too. So a lot of content in the YouTube channel, a lot of good stuff, and including great podcasts like this one. And a lot of them are loaded into my website too. So please stay in touch, help me fight anti-Semitism, enjoy the book, and maybe it'll be rekindled as some type of a documentary or a series someday, who knows? But we'll see what happens. There's certainly enough action adventure in it to qualify.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. As you can tell, we said the screen right there for you, robertjwolfmd.com. This is where you go. Again, you can get the information on Not a Real Enemy, the true story of a Hungarian Jewish man's fight for freedom. You got some links right there to the right where you can get it as well. Also, he's mentioned to where you can contact him on his social medias. Dr. Wolf, I appreciate you joining us here today on Sweep Unplugged. Hope to have you back very, very soon to talk more. But again, more sides about the book as well as other sports and as well as maybe some music this time since we got the food part out of the way.
And
so
medicine, too, if you want. I'm 35 years of experience. No substitute for experience. That's one of the things I teach the kids.
Oh,
no
definitely.
Substitute for experience.
Yeah, definitely. We just added a medical show to our network, so I definitely would be loving to get in contact with you, talk to you a little bit more about medicine as well. So appreciate you again joining us here this morning. It is Dr. Robert J. Wolf. Again, Not a Real Enemy, the true story of a Hungarian Jewish man's fight for freedom, available where books are available. So for Dr. Wolf, it's Rudy Campos Jr. Be sure to go to our YouTube page or Sweep the League TV, hit the subscribe button. We'll be coming to you with more Sweep Unplugged here this week and next week as we've got more great guests lined up. Don't forget about the big show, Sweep the League TV. It'll be coming to you Monday through Friday nights at 9 p.m. Central Time. So for Dr. Robert J. Wolf, it is Rudy Campos Jr. Until we sweep the league and basically sweep Unplugged from everything, we'll see you later, knuckleheads.